Kia ora, New Zealand. Welcome to Sweet Chain Live. This is episode 18, and it's the one you've been waiting for. Today, we've got a whole host of guests who have all put their names forward to be on the New Zealand Disc Golf Board, and we'll be talking to many of them very, very shortly. Before we get into all of that, we'll go through some housekeeping. So first up, we're going to go through the hot scores for the week just gone. So down at Queen's Park in Invercargill, Levi hits 18 under par, 3 shots ahead of Ethan Stout, who hits 15 under. At Chingford in Dunedin, Jake Brennan has the hot score with 4 under. And across to Queenstown Gardens, it's Roberts Crastins. We'll hear a little bit more from him later. 11 under par. Across to Tucker Beach, Akira Kuro shoots 2 over in the hot round for the week. And at Ely Point, it's a 3-way tie between Paul McKernan, Nick Steenson, and Spookster78, who all go 1 over. Lismore Park in Wanaka, Billy Goldsmith, John Menzies, and Ryan Cambridge all go 9 down. And across to Christchurch, it's Ashton Clark, who hits 15 down at Jelly Park. Queen's Park Reserve sees Willie Taratana hit 7 under, and at Brooker Ave, Jasper van der Meer hits 4 under par. Up to the capital, and it's Flavio Mayorga who hits 5 under at Berhampore, and Dion Wardady hits 5 under at Hikoikoi Reserve. So well done to Dion. 5 under at Hikoikoi is a very good score indeed. Up to Harcourt, and it's Richard McDonald who will be shooting all sorts of grenades and spike bombs and every which way you can think to shoot 3 under par. And at Linklater, Joel Simpson hits 1 under for the hot round of the week. Up to Topor and Spa Park, outside of the tournament which happened, and we'll cover the results of that shortly, Josh Love Parrota hits 1 under par. Up on the Wood Hill Red Tees, Josh shoots evens, and at Henderson, Richard Watson hits 6 under par. Now, the weekend just gone was the first Topor Classic, the return of the Topor Classic, and it was a great weekend by all accounts from everyone I've spoken to and I've heard from who went there for the weekend. And the results, I'll just bring the results up now. The results, oh, that's a bit bigger. There we go. In tied for 8th place, we had Brady Cush, Mario Cernia, and Anthony Rogers on 2 down, Trevor Woolman on 3 under, Philippe Sinzel on 4 under, tied with Simon Feasy for 5th, Jackson Sullivan in 4th, Andy Davey making moves in 3rd place with 7 down, Mark Dakiv holding on to a good score in his first round to go 8 under par, and it was taken out by Justin Workman, 17 under par, including a hot 10:37 rated 2nd round. So congratulations to Justin for taking that out. And across to the FPO division, it was a tight battle between Team Sweet Chain's Liz Mocker and Gemma Sullivan, with Gemma Sullivan coming out just by just 3 shots at the end. So well done to Gemma. Okay, let's get into it now. The format for today's show is that we're going to have a lot of the guests coming on and joining us. We're going to give them 1 or 2 minutes to give a brief discussion about who they are and why they want to be doing the role they are. And then me and Paul have got some questions for them after that. We're also taking questions from the comments. And there was also a thread of questions that came in through Google's forms that we sent out yesterday. So if you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. Start your question off with Q4 and then the name of the person, so it makes it easier to see the questions and easier to bring them in. Quick reminder that of what it is that you're voting for. So each of the people that we've got on today have applied for a position on the New Zealand Disc Golf Board, and that's what it is that you'll be voting for. And hopefully, if you're a member of New Zealand Disc Golf, then you will have received an email, hopefully, earlier on this week, inviting you to inviting you to vote. And what you're voting for is for them to be on the New Zealand Disc Golf Board and taking New Zealand Disc Golf forward into the future. Now, there is only one candidate for each position. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll get elected. It means that you have a choice. You can either choose to elect this person or to not. And by not electing them, that's not doing your civil democratic duty. That's simply saying that you don't perhaps line up with their value set. But what I would say to that is that each of these people has volunteered themselves for these positions, and hopefully you'll hear from them today, and they'll all put a credible case forward. I'd like to introduce at this point Paul Deacon, who's the ex chairman of New Zealand Disc Golf and the current chairman of Christchurch Disc Golf Club, who's going to be helping me tonight with the interview questions. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, Matt. Good to be on the show.
It's good to have you on. Any words of advice for the candidates before we jump in?
Yes, I'd just like to say that, as I'm sure they already know, being on the NZDG board is much work and much responsibility, but for little reward and even less recognition. So I would just like to put my hat on in order that I may take my hat off to each and every one of them. Well done.
Absolutely.
That's my advice. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the order of the day is that we're going to be first of all speaking to Liana Christina, who's applied for the position of secretary. We'll then be speaking to Chris Mance, who's applied for the position of outreach director. Chris Dixon couldn't join us tonight, but we do have a pre-recorded interview with Chris Dixon, and we'll be playing that afterwards. We've then got a quick update on Chris Davies, again, who isn't able to join us today. Robert Crastins will then join us to talk about his application as tournament director. And finally, Alan Gorfy will be going through his application as chairman. Following that, we'll have a panel discussion for where I'll bring all of the candidates back, and we've got a few questions that we'd like to ask as a group. Okay, so let's kick it off. Our first guest tonight is Liana Christina. Now, she's applied for the position of secretary. So good evening, Liana. Well, one moment, let me get you on the screen properly. There we are. Good evening. Can you hear me? Hang on a minute.
Aw, my assistant.
Lovely, excellent. We can hear you now, and presumably you can hear us.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. Like, it's good fun as usual being in your show. Yeah, I've applied for this role as secretary for the NZDG this year, and let's see what I can bring to the board with just being available and Robert's doing things. Yeah.
Do you want to give us just a quick 1 or 2 minutes about yourself, and for people who may not know you and who may not know, why you feel that you'd be a good candidate for the position?
Yes, so I'm a disc golfer, as all of us are, playing in Queensland mostly. That's my home base. Been privileged to travel quite a bit this year, and that's kind of inspired me to see to be part of a bigger picture as well, and help with hopefully decision making in the future, or just carrying out the jobs that are just piling up. And as I wrote in my manifesto, I kind of feel like there's a great momentum, and we just have to keep going. The sport's growing at rapid speed, so we just need more hands on deck. And I just felt that I finally kind of feel more comfortable to be part of it. I just think every new player has to figure out things for themselves before you can kind of contribute more stuff. And I guess that's where I feel like I'm at, and hopefully. So yeah.
Cool. Liana, I have a question, and I don't know whether you even thought of this one, but the constitution of NZDG was changed last year to allow subscription membership. In other words, there are people out there who don't play on the NZ Tour but want to be part of NZDG. So will you encourage more subscription members?
Thanks for the question, Paul. Don't want to necessarily comment on it at the moment. I haven't wrapped into the whole thing yet. I am fresh and new to the whole thing, but that doesn't mean I'm no benefit to the potential of the board and the new team. So we'll definitely look at that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Another one, which again you may not have thought of, but at least we'll put in your in tray, which is that in the past, and I believe currently, the email list of members is not up to date. So that's quite a problem for communicating with members, and also it causes problems with elections because we can't necessarily get ballots to all the members. So have you thought about that, and will you sort it out? Yeah.
We definitely want everyone to receive emails and be up to date, and even if it means that we have to reset the whole system again, I guess, to start it fresh, because sometimes it sounds like it's messy, keep adding to the pile and multiple emails and stuff. So that's I've been in that pile myself, so I know how stressful it is. But at the same time, I would encourage people to be patient, to reach out, and we'll get it sorted, and try not to dwell on it. It's no one's intention, most likely, to hurt you. It's just the system isn't perfect, and so let's work to make it better and more transparent.
Cool.
Yeah, excellent. The role of secretary can be quite a generalist role. You'll be working with lots of different members of the board. So I'd like to know what kind of experience or maybe kind of strategies do you put in place to make sure that with so many discs in the air, none of them kind of fall on the ground?
What was your metaphor about, though? About the fact that we have a lot of people involved.
Yeah. So my metaphor is that there's often a lot of things going on at the same time. Yeah. How do you make sure that you can keep on top of everything and that things that are important don't slip?
But I guess I just believe we're going to work as a team. It's a lot of us on the board, and as long as we decide on what our priorities are, and then at least pencil a plan, then I can help push for that plan. And communication is going to be the key to all the things. And I feel like, I hope so, that the previous board members are always going to be available for a quick call and tips and stuff. So I don't want to feel like I'm going in on my own. And I feel like there's a lot of support out there. It's just, I will be at this point, maybe the person who's more like putting in on paper, but it's not going to be just me. I'm just volunteering my time and work and just to share the load. I feel like the previous board has been like having to do so many jobs in a small team. So I'm just trying to bring more hands to the board and female representation as well. So let's see.
Cool. One last question from me, Leanna. If you're willing to tell us, I'm just curious to know what your previous work experience is, so that members can see what you bring to the board.
Yes, so I've been part of a lot of NGOs in the past. I don't know, I haven't jumped into it more when I moved to New Zealand, but they all were kids orientated, all the special needs and stuff. So that was my community work back home. I loved it. It just was inclusiveness and creating events. It wasn't anything, I guess, maybe life-changing in many ways, but it was filling in the time and building relationships between people in my community. I didn't do as much administrative roles before, but you got to start somewhere, and I feel like I'm keen to learn, and I hope that doesn't dismiss me from this opportunity, that I haven't done exactly this kind of job before.
I'm sure it doesn't.
No, not at all. Not at all. Look, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was great to hear from you. what I'm sure we'll hear from you again in the future. Anything you'd like to mention to people watching?
At this stage, I'm quite nervous, so let's see you when the panel starts.
Okay. Look, thank you so much, Leanna, and we'll see you in the panel a little bit later on.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we now have Chris Mance, who's joining us, and he is standing by. Now, Chris is applying for the position of Outreach Director. So let's welcome Chris. Good evening, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, all the listeners of your show.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm good. I've had some dinner. I'm relaxing here, listening to all the chatter and looking forward to getting involved.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, position of Outreach Director, do you want to give us just a quick summary of who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about why you want to be doing this position?
Okay. I did put a candidacy letter up on the website, so if anyone wants to have a read of that, please feel free. I probably won't go through it now. But who am I? I'm a father of 3 grown-up disc-throwing kids, married to a disc-throwing wife, and been throwing plastic for probably 35 years, mostly ultimate, or I say 30 years of ultimate and 10 years of disc golf. Got a few tournaments under my belt and intend to play a few more in the coming years. So that's the briefest of of intros. A flying disc highlight, which I mentioned in my letter, was taking a Venezuelan team to the World Championships, Ultimate World Championships, in 1991, which was pretty amazing experience. Having lived it in Venezuela and found a small group of players there, and it's blossomed into a huge program of teams. 30 teams, 10 women's teams. So it's been that was a great journey, great experience, and quite useful, really, in terms of what I'm hoping I can bring to the board now. I guess in terms of looking at the priorities for the outreach director, I've got 4 areas that I kind of look at, and I think, to be honest, like all of these things, they cut across all of us on the board and all of our playing community. Every single thing that needs pushing is actually being pushed by us every single day. We play around, so it's kind of just bringing and trying to sort of formalize what we do individually every day, and bring it to the market and what have you. So I guess if I just talk through the four key areas, and I guess with the recent incident at Jelly Park, health and safety is just right up there. And what happened was very unfortunate, but with the right awareness, and it's avoidable to the greater extent. And I think this is about keeping an eye out for each other. So there's a big message out there about looking after each other, and as we promote this sport, we make sure we promote a safe sport too. So I think that's probably my number one point. I have a second one, if you don't mind me carrying on a little bit, and that's, wow, the benefits of playing disc golf. I mean, getting outdoors, and I'm sure we've all got a few playing acquaintances whose lives have been transformed by disc golf. I know I do. So there's a great message out there about the benefits of playing disc golf to all the community, from young to old. And I think that's a really important message, because I think that will help us sell this sport to those that are actually going to help us fund it. Why are we wanting to get money from someone? Because actually there's benefits for the community, and councils are putting money into these sorts of things at the moment. So there is funding out there, and I think it's just how we sell our message is really important. I have down here spreading the word, and we're getting to a point now in Christchurch where we actually have got more players than we have got courses, or we're getting to that saturation point, and that's a concern, isn't it, for all of us? And I think probably what I'd love is if we can find a way to create some slightly more informal ways of playing disc golf as well, keeping our eye out for potential safe but often track courses aiming at trees. And you know what I'd love to see a sort of a little bit of a stand about what a tree course looks like. You know, how do we build a tree course without it getting too complicated, but keeping it safe at the same time? So I think that's a way of actually giving ourselves a bit more space while we wait for new courses to be built.
Okay.
And my last area is, yeah, of course, is how do we get the young involved? And as I put in my letter, there's 250,000 teenagers in New Zealand. And how about we set ourselves a goal of getting a disc in all of their hands by 2026? So it's only 50,000 discs a year. And who knows, maybe possible. Let's think big.
Excellent.
So I think really there's a whole bunch of things going on, and I would love to try and apply some of my somewhat unusual thinking skills, problem-solving skills to that as the outreach director.
Excellent. Oh, you've touched on a few things there that I'd like to ask a few questions on, if I may.
Sure.
In your manifesto, you mentioned that there's a lot of farmland out there. Are you proposing to put disc golf courses on farmland?
Well, I visited Mount Lyford not that long ago, and down the bottom of Mount Lyford, there's actually some sort of adventure park. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but there is something. They call themselves an adventure park. And it's a walking track. It's got some bike tracks, and it's a fantastic space. And I just think that around New Zealand, in some of our cities, we're actually quite strapped for good land. I mean, here in Christchurch with the red zone, there's a lot of potential. But in some of our other cities, you know, we've got parks, but they're really not that conducive to disc golf. And I think about the US, and I watch these you know, Gomez tournaments, and everyone's playing up in the forests. And I'm thinking, well, there's no houses anywhere near here. And I just think maybe we need to slightly look outside of our centers to get some of these courses going. And maybe, just maybe, there's a few landowners out there that have some of these, you know, that can be persuaded. So yeah, I think we should be looking beyond our other borders courses.
Okay, it's an interesting strategy, given that I think many people would argue that the growth in Christchurch has been down in large part to courses being built in residential areas, so that people are walking past the park every day, and one day they see a metal cage there and go, "What's that?" And then the next day they're there playing. I don't know, but I suspect that that's it. Maybe Paul could give us some insight on this as to whether that's the case or not. I don't know.
Tonight's show isn't about Christchurch or about me, but it certainly does seem to be the case that growth in the game correlates with whether or not courses are in residential areas, for sure.
No denying that.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned about getting a disc to every kid, to 50,000 discs a year. That's pretty ambitious,
isn't it?
It is. How will that work if the courses aren't there for them to play on? And at 50,000 discs a year is, even if you're getting them at a reasonable cost price, that's about $500,000 at least a year. So
no, okay.
How does that work?
That's a dream. I guess I tailored that back a little bit, and I didn't quite mention that in my intro. But I guess I was looking at the 250,000 students. I came up with about 500 schools. And I guess that becomes a little bit more manageable when we're talking about 500 entities. And maybe trying to get a basket or two and 10 discs into each of those schools. Then we're kind of looking at maybe a couple of $100,000. And it may sound like a lot of money, but with what's been happening in the last 12 months in New Zealand, and what's happening in terms of this country looking for ways to actually give people a different. I mean, look what happened in the lockdown. We were all getting out and wandering around the place. I mean, I've never done so much walking around my neighborhood as I did during lockdown. So I think that there's a will to do something different out there, and something like disc golf into schools is an opportunity, and let's see if we can seize the moment.
Yeah, excellent. I happen to agree with you that into schools is something that's worth exploring more. So go on, Paul.
Well, I've just got a little question, which is quite an interesting one, I think. As outreach director, it's very probable that you will become one of the most public faces of disc golf in New Zealand. So I wonder if you can tell us what experience and skills you bring to a role like that.
Well, I guess my most recent skills when I was working in the Christchurch rebuild. I was working for the Christchurch infrastructure rebuild program. And one of my jobs was trying to promote pressure wastewater. I'm not sure if anyone understands what that is, but basically, normally our sewers, when you flush a toilet, it goes out into a gravity pipe and you never see it again. During the earthquakes, all of that got interrupted, and some areas just couldn't be rebuilt like that. So we had to put a tank on people's gardens with a pump. And people's homes are their castle, and they don't actually want a pump tank on their garden. So we had multiple public meetings where I made presentations and took questions from the audience, and basically tried to sell a pretty difficult option to people out there. Sometimes we succeeded, and other times we didn't. Sometimes people just said no, and that was that. You know, there are some people that just won't listen. But yeah, certainly that was a great learning experience for me, standing in front of hundreds of people, presenting new technology to, and I guess it's new ideas. So it's, you know, that along those sort of lines, Paul.
Cool. And you mentioned schools. Have you given any thought yet to what kinds of organisations you might be able to reach out to?
Well, I think the schools themselves, I would say, because I know that they're always kind of cash strapped, but at the end of each financial year, pretty much any institution that gets given a budget will find that they've got several $1,000s that they haven't yet spent. And I think that targeting some of these institutions at the right time is more important than which institutions we target. And I'd like to think that the Christchurch City Council could, you know, come to the table with some sponsorship for courses. Beg your pardon. I know that they donated those blocks for the T-pads, and there's loads more of those calls. So we'll be coming back to the Christchurch City Council for those for the next course. But I think it's about timing as much as it's about the organisations. And you know, there's plenty of organisations out there that want to have a name for something, and if it's something new and something different, I think there's organisations out there that are actually looking for that, rather than the same old rugby, cricket, football.
Yeah, sure. Excellent. Chris, we've got some questions from the comments. So I'm just going to bring one up here from Bray Marsden. Asks, will you be making moves to push growth of the game into local councils to see more courses pop up to hold a load of players beginning to play?
I mean, absolutely. We talked about the councils. The councils, I mean, I was approached, I work at the Christchurch City Council, and one of my colleagues who's building some wetlands at the moment in the Horswell area came to see me because he knows I play. And he said, Chris, you know, could you put a few baskets into our wetlands? You know, for sort of 2 out of every 3 years, they're dry as a bone, and we'll mow them. But occasionally they're going to be 3 feet, you know, they'll be 3 feet deep in water, and you won't be able to play that day. And he said there's actually some funding, you know, there's a $9, $10, $15,000, whatever, to buy some baskets and what have you. So I think, again, it's finding, not, you know, it's finding the ways, finding the parks, finding the opportunities. And I guess in some respects, this stormwater stumbling is a huge thing in Christchurch. There's these basins are all over the place, and they're planting new trees, so it's all kind of virgin ground. So lots of other councils have actually got climate change on their plate, and climate change means somehow adapting to greater rainfall, and that means finding space for putting these big ponds that can't have anything else in them. You can't build a house in them, you can't put a toilet block in them. It's just grass and trees. Great opportunity.
Excellent. Paul, any further questions from yourself?
No, I'm done. Thanks.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like to add for the listeners at home?
not really. Just thank you very much, and I hope I get an opportunity to put some of these crazy ideas into practice.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. Right. Let me sort out the screens here. Excellent. Now we have now a pre-recorded interview with Chris Dixon. Now, Chris Dixon is applying for the position of deputy chair. He wasn't able to make it tonight, but he did record we did do a pre-recorded interview with him earlier on this week. So we're going to play that now. He won't be able to answer any questions live in the comments because he's unavailable right now. However, he has said that he'll happily come back to any questions that are left in the comments. So let's if you do have any questions for Chris, then he's happy to answer those. But otherwise, we're going to go over to the pre-recorded interview, and we'll be back live shortly. Now, I'm joined by Chris Dixon, who is applying for the position of Deputy Chairman. So welcome to Chris.
To start out with, obviously my name's Chris. I'm originally from St. Thomas, Ontario, in Canada, which is a tiny little town, very similar to Invercargill. I moved to Whistler in the mid '90s and became a bit of a ski bike bum, I guess, if you will, and ultimately met a Kiwi over there, I guess the rest is sort of history. So we moved to Queenstown in 2009, and really that's it. We've settled here and haven't really been anywhere else. That's it. I think a lot of the guys may know who I am, especially down in this end of the world. I own one of the bars here in Queenstown called Smith's, I've been a pretty big, sponsor, I guess, of the game for many years with my involvement with Smith's, and so that's who I am there. So it's Smith's is the sort of unofficial home away from home for disc golfers when you come to town, it's for me it's awesome. Being able to sort of do that and have that sort of space for guys like yourselves and everybody who's on tour. It's just a real sweet spot. So that's about it, I guess, for me, really. That's sort of me in a nutshell. I guess to get back to your question as to why I want to do this, I joined the NZDG in 2013, I think, was probably my first sanctioned event, which would have been in the Gardens. I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back to TPAD, maybe have a look at that. But I got into disc golf back in those days, pushing around a little baby. So my daughter, we lived right in town. We had we had a baby, and Mom told me to go out and push the stroller around. And ultimately, I found the Queenstown Gardens. So let's see. Kind of started walking around. Saw a few of the boys who are now some of the best friends I've had since moving to New Zealand. I saw them out there throwing frisbees, and was just it was something that I would do back when I was playing volleyball, playing beach volleyball. Is that we would always throw, I guess, an ultimate disc we just called it beach frisbee back then, but and we were all about just throwing bombs and running up and down the beach, and so I just figured I could probably do that and push this pram, and so that was it, and I was pretty much instantly hooked. I got to meet Bob, and I think I bought some of my first few discs from Bob, and and it was just some of these guys that I met along the way, Bob and Hemi and Aaron Myers and Jolly, and some of the guys who are still around throwing, and some who are not anymore. But it was those guys that it was the sense of community that we got that sort of that has kept me involved in the game, and is, I guess, ultimately the reason why I'm running for this position now, really.
Well, Chris, if I may just say, you're quite brave standing to the board, because, as I'm sure you know, it's plenty of work for not much reward, and maybe even less recognition. So before we get into anything else, I'd just like to take my hat off to you and say, well done. Yes. Yeah. So what? And to ask the question, what particularly is motivating you to stand for the board now?
Yeah. So I think probably prior to you guys being involved in the sport, if we look back, and I'm sure Nigel Hailstone could probably tell you, and maybe even Martin would tell you a few of the emails that would have went back and forth back in the days with me getting involved in the NZDG. I think when I got involved, there never used to be a national event down. Oh, I shouldn't say national. There never used to be nationals held in the South Island, and so I was a bit of a pain in their ass, if you will, and wanted to sort of see some change. And so ultimately, Paul, I guess the thing is just for me is that I think it's always been about the growth and the development of the game and our sport. Why else run? Like, I understand this is a voluntary position that does require a bit of time. So first and foremost, I want to see some positive change. I love the fact that the game is at is in a great spot right now for those sorts of changes to come in, and I guess not only that is I've got a 7-year-old boy. His name's Carter. So he played his first event in the Gardens a couple weeks ago, and so he's also a big motivating factor for me, and I know that again there's been I've been pretty vocal about, I guess, some of the shenanigans that happen around tour events and having children present. So there are a couple that are there. I guess ultimately I really just want to see a positive change, and I know that it's probably a thankless job, and but I guess for me is that being able to develop a program with the likes of Alan and the rest of the board members to hopefully secure a positive future for my son and other kids like Carter. I don't really need a whole lot more thanks than that, really. So I've got my motivating factor looking at me at the minute. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So my first question really points towards the development of local clubs. Now, in Auckland, with a population of 1.7 million, over a third of the New Zealand population, they're without a disc golf club. Will you encourage one to be set up?
Yeah, is it still not set up? I thought for sure that I thought that there had been some movement on that already. No, I thought Alan had sorted that out. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I guess to answer your question, of course there needs to be something up there, and in full support of that. I guess at this stage, I don't know all the ins and outs. Not to be honest with you, I don't come into this lightly thinking that I know everything. So there's definitely going to be a major learning curve for me, which is also one of the reasons why I want to be involved. But Auckland definitely needs a club. 100% in full support of that. Yeah, for sure. As I said, though, I don't know the political side of it at this stage, being down at the bottom of the world down here. But I don't see why there shouldn't be one there. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we can chat with Alan a bit later on about the So similar to that, 70% of disc golf in New Zealand is played in the South Island. On a per capita basis, it's 8 times more played than in the North Island. Okay, so what do you see as being your role in addressing that balance?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and it's and I guess it's probably a bit early to tell. To be honest with you, I don't want to just spout a bunch of nonsense that sounds good. I think ultimately it's for me it's getting in and figuring out a little bit as to why there isn't why isn't it being played as much? Is it that land isn't as easy to come by? Is it because that the population is up there and there's less space? So I mean, it's I think taking a look at all the factors and then developing an answer, I think is probably what we want to be looking at. And talking to people like Paul and Martin and some of the past board members, Alan, who's been working on this for well over a year. So yeah, I mean, I think it's about just sort of figuring out what's going on and why it's not being developed, and coming up with some possible solutions. So,
have you got any ideas about how regions outside of the south of the South Island, including Christchurch within that bracket, would be represented at a national level? Given that if elected, the current candidates are nearly all from 3 from Queenstown, 1 from Christchurch, and 1 from Waiheke, but with some strong Queenstown ties.
Oh well, I didn't know. Well, look, I mean, the thing is that being a part of the board is it's we're representing the entire we're representing the entire country, and I don't think it matters where you live, it's or where you're from. Obviously we need to get into some of these places and talk to and talk to the right people and make these connections as you said, I think your first question is why aren't these clubs going on? So again, I'll kind of go back to that. That's probably the starting point, isn't it? So why aren't they going on and what's happening there? Let's get some positive information, and then sort of delve into it and try and find some solutions. As far as representation, as I said, look, I don't think that me being from Queenstown, I don't think it has any sort of holds anything. I can represent Hayden Shore from here just as well as if I was living in Wellington or in Gisborne or wherever for that matter. I mean, it's these days, look at you, here you are, you're in Wellington and here I am here. So look, I mean, technology has definitely made it way easier. But again, as I said, look, man, I think it's about making sure that we find those right people in some of these other areas and collaborate and talk to them. But coming from the South, I mean, I can tell you that what we did do worked, I guess, and so I can tell you a little bit more about that as opposed to what didn't work. And so, again, without talking to some of those people up in the North Island, I don't really know what more to say. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about what did work?
Well, I mean, I guess it's I think if we look at well, you can look at Queenstown. I don't necessarily put Queenstown in the same situation as some of these other clubs, but it was all about almost the Field of Dreams scenario, where if you build it, they'll come. And so, if we look at Invercargill, it was making sure that you had a driving force, which was there, which was Johnny, and not just Johnny, but people like Johnny, and what was the other fella's name that was there? He moved up to Wellington. Anyway, having some of these key individuals who are passionate about it, definitely, and sort of planting themselves within the community, and and being willing to do the work themselves. I mean, that was a massive win for Invercargill and for all of us within the whole community, really. But so I guess that in a nutshell is the sort of Field of Dreams scenario, where, as I said, look, you build it, they'll come. But again, it's having strong leadership. Johnny and Calvin and Bray and and all those guys, and then not to mention the entire community of Invercargill. We're so well embraced down there. When we do go down, the mayor's involved, and it's just whether it was the perfect scenario. But again, it's got to be similar to what was happening in Christchurch with the with the boom. There was you had people who were, I think, almost fighting to be who was going to be in charge down there and who was going to drive it forward. So probably a good problem having so many different people forcing it forward. But yeah, so again, they put in obviously Chris was paramount back down in the early days with Jelly Park, and again, that was probably one of my first events, was going down there and playing nationals down there. I think that was 2013, maybe. Again, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, so it's and then it's just sort of grown from there. I know it didn't happen overnight. It's definitely taken quite a few years for it to get there. But again, it starts with having a place to play, and then having somebody who's willing to drive it forward. So.
And a question from me, Chris, which is one of obviously the major responsibilities of the deputy chairman is liaising with the clubs. How do you see yourself interacting with the clubs where they do exist, and things like helping the clubs with fundraising?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. So, look, again, I've been around in New Zealand and in the game. I'm definitely not one of the pioneers, but if we look back in its sort of small history or short history, I know a lot of the older guys who have been doing it for as long as me. I think there's a lot of good history there. I'm pretty personable, quite friendly, and quite easy to get along with. So I have no problem working with the different clubs. Yeah, I mean, I guess my regular sort of 9 to 5 type life, I guess, keeps that side of me pretty intact. I'm constantly working with a variety of different people and demographics, so easy on that end. And which also leads me to the next thing again, is that I don't know how much you guys know, but a lot of the stuff that I do outside of the bar is quite charity driven, I get heavily involved in other community events and creating events my own that also offer charitable donations to our community. So yeah, I've got some pretty good ideas as to I guess on that front and things that we can do. But again, I don't want to let too many cats out of the bag on that, and I probably want to save those sorts of ideas for the board and when we do sit down, or I guess when we do get there. But yeah, hanging out with the different clubs and those people and getting up there, which is another great thing about disc golf. If I guess if I digress and go back here, was that disc golf, it gave me it still does it, but it's given me so much insight into New Zealand, not only just its culture, but its people, but its towns and cities. And one of the things I love the most is being able to get out and go and see different places. There are so many places in the North Island that I've never been to. And I'd love to get up there and go and see Blair and those guys and the guys over at Palmy. And yeah, there are so many places in the North Island I can't wait to get to. Yeah, so really looking forward to doing that at some stage here in the next sort of 12 months anyway.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You'll be welcome in Wellington.
What's that, sorry?
You're welcome in Wellington.
Oh, well, thanks, mate. Yeah, there we go.
Moving on to a completely different topic, Chris. One of the stated important roles of the deputy chairman is dealing with conflicts of interest. As you're probably aware, there have been conflicts and perceived conflicts of commercial interests within NZDG in the past. So a simple question: how do you see your role there, and do you expect to do anything a bit differently?
Well, I'm definitely aware of the perceived conflicts. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say to that. I mean, it's yeah, I know I'm not looking to bring any of those conflicts forward. I think that the previous boards were the previous boards, and I guess if it comes up while I'm sitting in a chair, then we'll address it at that stage. But yeah, I'm really hoping that, again, I think with those who are running, I don't think that we'll have any of those sort of sort of issues again. You know, so yeah, I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think anybody who's currently running has any ties or financial interests to any business that they own outside of maybe some sponsorship, like myself with Small Planet. So I'm not sure if I answered your question there, Paul, or not, but yeah.
Well, moving on, there is a related question, which is you're listed on the New Zealand Companies Register as being a 50% shareholder in a recently formed company by the name of New Zealand Disc Golf Pro Tour Limited.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us something about that company?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess the idea behind the NZ Pro Tour, which unfortunately came to a bit of a grinding halt when we received a letter from the current board, I guess, asking us to change our name. But the idea behind the NZDG Pro Tour was, you know, well before I decided to sort of do what we're doing now. I just knew that there was a potential opportunity within that space to look at a new tour, and I still believe that there is room for that. And in talking with, you know, a few of the people, Alan and a couple others who were currently on the board, you know, I'm not the only one who believe that there is, I guess, room for it. I guess where I sit now is that is just a name. It has been registered, and that's it. There has been zero follow-up work to that, you know, I'm not pursuing it at this stage any further. My next step is this, and it's gaining some insight and some knowledge, some, you know, positive development for both the NZDG and myself, and the board and the people who play this game. So, you know, I can tell you within 100% certainty that that will not go forward while I'm on this board. At least not with my name involved. I can tell you and everybody out there right now that I will promise that that's not going to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah.
So finally, look, thanks very much for talking to us today. Now we've heard from multiple sources that Canadians are pathologically nice. Does it? Do you agree? And B, does it make it difficult to get difficult stuff or have hard conversations at all?
Well, do I agree? I agree 100%. And I guess we'll let the comments below sort of dictate whether or not other people may agree with you, especially the ones that know me. Look, yeah, you know, I'm not afraid of a hard conversation. You know, it's you know, I've been pretty fortunate, I guess, in my sort of career to sort of, I guess I've learned to sort of figure out how some of those work. So yeah, no, look, I don't think it's a big deal for me, and yeah, I hope that we're able to do it in a manner that is friendly, and yeah, I'm definitely not out there to make any enemies. That's for sure. So yeah, I don't know. I hope people find me friendly. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Paul,
the comments will come, I'm sure.
Paul, any further questions for Chris?
No, just to say thanks for coming on the podcast and to wish you all the best in your role.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks a lot, you guys, and I really appreciate, as I said at the beginning of the show here, you know, I appreciate everything that you're doing and everything that you've done, Paul. I guess from you know, your position in the past, and Matt, again, I think that, as I've said to you in text messages, I think that what you are currently doing is amazing. You know, if we look at the growth of the sport, it's people like yourself that are really helping make a difference in pushing us in the right direction. Creating this podcast and having an open space for dialogue is incredible, and it's yeah. I mean, I really I can't thank you enough for what you do, and it's such a cool thing to see, and I think it really puts us on the map with some of these other places around the world that are pushing the sport. So good job, and I guess I wish you guys all the best as well. So fingers crossed, and yeah, I hope to not let anybody down. Really, just do the best I can.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for your kind words. Podcasts like this wouldn't be anything without the guests who come on them. So thank you so much for coming on today, talking to us, and answering our questions. And we wish you all the very best in the upcoming elections.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay, see you around.
Thanks, fellas.
Cheers.
Okay, that was Chris Dixon, who joined us on a pre-recorded interview earlier on this week. Now, moving on to the position of Communications Director. Now, unfortunately, Chris Davies has been unable to join us this evening for some very good personal reasons. So we won't have a chance to speak to Chris. Next up, we have Roberts Crastins, who is applying for the position of Tournament Director. Or tour director, I should say. So I'll bring Paul back and I'll bring Roberts in. And let's go like this. Good evening, Roberts. Okay. Can you unmute? I think might be the...
Sure can. Good evening, Matt. Sorry.
Excellent. Excellent. Good stuff. Look, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're applying for this position.
Well, yeah, my name's Roberts. I'm currently based in Queenstown, as probably you might have heard. I'm originally from Latvia. We moved to New Zealand roughly 5.5 years ago now. Been based mostly in Queenstown the whole time, and just picked up disc golf about 4 years ago. Been sort of involved quite actively with the tour and the sort of surrounding events, and sort of been traveling wherever we can. And yeah, just felt like, been quite passionate about it, and also been sort of wanting to put, my hand up, be a bit more involved in sort of in the tour events and running the sort of board and being a bit more involved in the decision making, not only in just sort of being a bit more supportive role as well. So, I felt like now might be the best time to sort of put my hand up, get some fresh blood on the board and see where we can take the New Zealand disc golf, to the next level.
Cool. As I've done with the other candidates, I'd just like to take my hat off to you. So thank you for volunteering your precious time to help all of us. Can you tell us a bit in general about any plans you have for the NZ Tour?
Well, as I've already sort of laid out a little bit in my manifesto, I feel quite strongly about New Zealand Tour should be run over the New Zealand summer season. Like at the moment, it just doesn't sit right with me, with us right now being in the middle of our, New Zealand season. And if you look out the window, we've had snow pretty much every morning in Queenstown. And, people are obviously still playing disc golf, but I feel like we should be, making use of the better weather that we have in the summer. Yeah, of course, people will complain, oh, but this is the summer vacations. We go out with the family. But not everybody does, and there's plenty of pros that are willing to travel and put their time in, especially over summer when the weather is better and more likely to be better to play and run the tour that way. So that's one of the main things that I feel quite strongly about, that I'd like to push the board. Sort of, I don't believe this works like, oh yeah, I decided, therefore that shall it be. But I'd like to open a discussion with the whole community, which is another thing I feel quite strongly about. Like the board. NZDG in general should be open. Before, I felt like everyone will sort of talk and sort of chat about and sort of do rumor mills and stuff in their own clubs, in their own communities, but there's no one community where we can all come together and sort of discuss these kind of things. I've already noticed in the comments there's quite a nice discussion going on with what sort of the future of the tour should look like, what sort of events we're looking at, and how we can accommodate more players and stuff. So I feel like this should be something that NZDG can supply. And I feel like there's a very simple option now we can do it. There's a community page option on the Facebook. So if we just open that up on New Zealand Disc Golf page, have a community there where people can openly, like obviously we have to sort of limit some, you know, remarks of people getting off the topic and going too crazy and being aggressive and stuff. But I feel like that's, you know, another major thing where we can open discussions and, you know, make people feel like they're heard and have actually, you know, make them, you know, voice their opinions and stuff.
Cool. Just a sort of follow-up question, which you partly answered, but it's partly from just my own perspective as a player, which is that it's becoming common now for NZ Tour events to fill up really fast, maybe in a few days or even a few hours. Obviously, there are lots of players out there who want to play in tours but can't because the capacity isn't there at the moment. But also, if you take a step backwards, a helicopter view, it will also mean that for a lot of new players, including youngsters, their first experience of NZDG will be being not allowed to compete in a tournament because it's full up already. So,
well,
yeah,
thanks for the question, Paul. I do feel like I kind of touched it with the, you know, about this in my manifesto as well. Like, I don't see how we can limit every tour event to being only the pros can play, and there will always be a thing. It's the same problem as, you know, everyone faces this in the, you know, rest of the world as well. But what we can do as NZDG, where we could have like a priority sort of registration for the pro players for the majors, where the majors being North Island, the South Island champs, and the nationals. And I feel like, you know, as an amateur, I can absolutely understand how a pro player will be given the advantage to register first for the national major events. Whereas, you know, local tour events, you know, we can look at, oh, okay, how about we, you know, open a certain amount of spots? You know, or we'll have, you know, 50, 75% for the pro players or whoever has played in the tour event before, and we can have, you know, that's all up in discussion. I've seen the discussion in the comments before. That's not a, you know, one person's decision, and it's not a sort of very simple decision to make either.
But do we simply need more tournaments?
Well, that's another funny one. If you notice that, you know, there's not that many people putting their hands up, oh yeah, let's run an event.
Sure.
If you know, pay attention, it's actually mostly the same people. You know,
Yes.
this is the proactive tour directors, which is just awesome to see them putting their time and effort in. You know, more often than not, they're not, you know, earning any money out of it. They're just doing it because, you know, they like the, you know, people's smiles on their faces and stuff. But absolutely, that's going to be a thing. You know, with having more courses, more people playing, there's definitely going to be more tour events, more just events in general, not necessarily only tour events as well.
Yeah.
So all of the players will get a chance to play. So there'll definitely be more, you know, people playing leagues and that sort of events as well. So it'll just be interesting to see how the disc golf grows.
Sure.
I mean, that's a fair point. How do you see your role in influencing and leading current tournament directors, as well as developing a pool of would-be tournament directors to hold those events?
Well, so me being as a, you know, candidate for the tour director, not the tournament director, tour director, being sort of as a supportive role. So I feel like the main thing that I want to contribute to the NZDG is I want to develop very clear tour standards. You know, at the moment it's like a half A4 little page with a sort of little offset text that's, you know, basically more or less talking about, you know, how you can advertise your event and stuff, but no certain amounts of, you know, how the event should run, how sort of what terms, what do you need to sort of have the minimum level of what sort of the standards should be for such events. So I feel like I want to contribute to that. And with that, you know, it's not just enough to say, oh, as long as it's a PDGA CTO event, it's already a part of the New Zealand Tour. I feel like we could raise the bar a little bit more than that and have the New Zealand Tour be something a bit more exclusive, you know, and it's a national tour. If we talk, you know, look into other sports, if it's a national tour, it's something big. So we could, with the sport growing, you know, so crazy, we could have a lot of different events that not necessarily would be a tour. Because the sport was quite small before. It's always been a standard, oh, if there's an event, it should be in the New Zealand Tour, but we can make it something a bit more exclusive. But yeah, I understand your question. It's interesting. I don't see us as the NZDG being able to, encourage more tournament directors to step up and, run events. We could probably incentivize them in some way, but I can't think off the top of my head like how exactly we could be able to, be achieving that.
Different subject altogether. With as the world opens up post-COVID, would you like to see New Zealand putting in a bid for a major international tournament? For example, the Team Worlds.
I actually did think about this just the other day. I didn't think of it as the Team Worlds. I was like, oh, how cool would that be if we were able to run the PDGA World Championships? Just hypothetically. And then the major hurdle I saw in that is that, there is a reason why it's only been run in the States so far and all of the time, all of the logistics involved. But I don't see a reason why we couldn't run the Team Worlds.
Cool. And what rule? But what if that were to happen? How would you see NZDG's role in any such bid?
Well, that would obviously be something for the board to discuss and have a bit more open discussion with the community, because that's not something that one person can handle. That's way too big. Having been to the Team Worlds back in Estonia, seeing how massive of an event that is. It's not enough for one tournament director or tour director to handle by themselves. So, and obviously just the budget itself, like it's I doubt that it's going to be something where us as a New Zealand Disc Golf Association we can make money out of. That's really something we'd have to invest into.
And a last question from me, which is partly just a personal one as a player in tour events and tournaments. I will confess I'm pretty confused by the number of different divisions we get on the tour. It's probably about 10 or 12 at least on the NZ tour. And also, but I think it's even worse in the PDGA tournaments in the US, sometimes can have as many as 46 divisions. When I play, I don't know whether there's going to be a senior grandmasters division or not. It seems somewhat random. Some tournaments have fewer divisions, some have more, and I will frankly admit I'm just a bit confused by it all. Do you think you can maybe simplify or clarify the division situation as we go forward?
Yes, definitely. The one thing I'd like to touch on is I believe a lot of people, including tournament directors, might be quite confused what the difference might be between an amateur and a pro event in the PDGA C tier. So a lot of people organize these PDGA C tier events, which are amateur only, but that actually restricts players from being able to play in their sort of age protected divisions.
Correct.
If we take, for example, pro masters division, so anyone with the rating above 935, if I'm not mistaken, cannot play in that division. So therefore, say some masters eligible player would have to play in the open. But if there was a pro masters division, everyone could be able to play in it. And people have this sort of idea that, oh, if I have a pro division, then I have to have payouts. That's not the thing. If you have a B tier, then yes. But if you're running a C tier, there's no reason why you couldn't have all of your divisions as pro, which is what we did for the Queenstown Classic. And you don't need to have payouts. And that greatly simplifies not having pro masters, amateur masters, and all these extra, divisions. But I can understand like going up a little bit higher where you have the grandmasters, senior grandmasters. It's just there's not enough senior grandmasters, Paul. Maybe you as a senior grandmaster could then go incentivize more other grandmasters to play, and therefore you will have a bigger division.
It might be a self-fulfilling prophecy in that if a senior grandmaster has to play in the 50 plus, then he won't enter. Just a suggestion. Yeah. Anyway, I'm finished with my questions. Right.
Lovely. Roberts, is there anything that you'd like to say to the people out there this evening? Anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, well, I just say thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope I managed to answer some of your questions. I will go through after the live broadcast and sort of see if I can, chip in the discussion and help answer some questions and stuff in there. But yeah, like I said, like I'd really love to see New Zealand disc golf being a lot more open to all of these great discussions. If we can make this happen, have a platform, because we don't have a platform right now. So I commend you, Matt, for having Sweet Chain Live, which has just been awesome to see disc golf community come together and sort of have a place to hang out together and express their thoughts.
No, and thank you for coming on and talking us through your ideas.
Awesome, thank you.
Lovely.
We'll see you in the panel discussion.
See you shortly. Okay, so last up, we have going for seeking re-election for the position of chair. We have Alan Gorfy. So I'll bring Alan in now. Good evening, Alan.
Good evening. How are we today?
Yeah, very good, thank you, and thank you so much for being patient and waiting till the end to be heard. It's been, I think we've had some great conversations so far today, and looking forward to hearing from yourself. Do you want to give us just? Do you want to give us just a quick summary of who you are, where you're from, and so that anybody who doesn't know can get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, my name's Alan Gorfy. Most of you have been traveling around the country for about 8 years now, playing golf in the North and the South Island. Currently living on Waiheke Island. I'm originally from Oregon. Started playing disc golf in about 2003. And never stopped. Yeah. So I've been the chairman of the association for the last 5 months or so, I think it has been. Previously, I was on the board in 2019 for a year as a director. Yeah. Okay.
Good stuff. Maybe you could talk to us about what you see as some of your best achievements in the role so far.
Best achievements in the role, I guess, is just trying to support that connectivity within the team. I kind of see the chairperson's role as it's the manager role. You're really just trying to support the other members of your team to some degree to enable them to do the jobs that they have as well. And so doing that, you're a conduit to the members, being that head point of the arrow sort of thing. Other than that, we haven't done a lot in the last 6 months. I guess the biggest thing that we got over the line was the Topo funding project, semi-funding project, that got completed, obviously, with the Topo event last week happening. And yeah, just really trying to bring those that we've heard tonight. It's looking like a pretty fresh board, so there's going to be a lot of thoughts and a lot of creativity and a lot of new ideas. So trying to give a little bit of a learning on procedure, policy, how operation works at that governance level too, so that we can take all these good ideas and in the short amount of time that we have in the year, turn them into something. It's one of the interesting ones, having such a short term limit for the year.
Okay. We haven't seen an election manifesto from yourself. Can you tell us about some of your policies and ideas for the coming year?
Yeah, the coming year. So I think it's just going to be a carryover. Well, it won't be a complete carryover, but one of the big things that's going to be carried over from this current board is just trying to get policy in place. We have a long list of policies that we need to write, from tour to comms to finances to basically all of them. So that's going to be really heavy on the agenda. I think also things that, like Robert's mentioned on, I think the tour is going to be a big aspect, being it's a focal point in our association. But that doesn't mean that outreach and these other conduits to growth are something that we need to not spending time on as well. Just supporting that.
Okay.
Question from me, Alan. What do you think is the potential for growth of disc golf in New Zealand? And following on from that, what do you see as NZDG's role in supporting that?
Sure, Paul. Growth is unlimited, really. I mean, for the amount of space that we have, the rural lands, the community, it's a country just kind of perfectly set up for disc golf. So players, it all comes down to what we've already talked about. It's the ability to access parks and access equipment and access places to play. Other than that, the growth is there. We've seen that the last year. We're seeing that on our tour. We're seeing that throughout the sport in the nation. So I know your guys' region down there is ahead of most of these other ones, but they all seem to be growing at a very rapid rate. So on that side of it, NZDG's role in that is basically what I see is just governance. We're not here to create tournaments. We're not here, we kind of orchestrate them. We create a system. We create systems and policies, procedures for tournament directors and players to kind of follow by and be part of the tour. So we're going to talk about what's our growth in the ability for us to grow more courses or grow tours or grow different things like that. Those programs are up to the volunteer hours that we're going to be able to put into them to make them happen. But there possibilities there.
Yeah, sure. Following on from that, as chairman, what's your view on the extent to which NZDG and its board should represent all disc golf players in New Zealand, or should it just represent the members who play on the tour?
Oh, I would agree with the beginning statement there. It should, the way I see it is NZDG and the governance body is there for all golfers. If you play on the tour, if you play recreational, if you play at all, if you don't even play, like you mentioned earlier with, the members being able to join without being tour members and whatnot. That openness and that willing to bring all these people that want to enjoy, even if you just want to be a spectator, we want people around and encourage that. NZDG's role in that is basically, again, to just kind of support those people that want to play golf. But on that, we don't, we're not in the position that we make courses or we make events or we do those things. So it is, again, it's that governance, it's that upper level versus the physical doing all the time.
Yep.
Okay. Question we had earlier when we were talking to Chris Dixon was about Auckland Disc Golf Club. Can you shed any further light or give us an update on that? Only we mentioned it at the time because, at least to me, it hadn't been very public. If one has been arranged.
So where we're currently at from my standpoint, we have members to a club. We've held an election. We have a board now for the Auckland club. They've finalized, they've done the paperwork to become an incorporated society. And as far as I'm aware of, I'm not on that board, but as far as I'm aware of, they are just finalizing the bank account. And then after that, they'll become more of an active club. And that's where I know. But they are definitely, so like the event I'm running next month, June at Waitawa, is an Auckland club event is what we're running it as. So yeah,
excellent.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Stephen Brown and a few other people are in charge of that at the moment. Fantastic. But we got it off the ground, so that's good.
No, that's good to hear. So the job description for the chair position includes dealing with government and national media. Can you tell us about your dealings with them so far and looking ahead?
Yeah, so I guess in general to not disc golf related stuff. I mean, I have experience dealing with MPI. I also chair the Biodynamic Association of New Zealand board, which is a 600 member organization, and we deal with organic regulations. And so I have a history of having to speak at high level technical technical meetings for organic standards and things like that, standard meetings. So talking to MPI and conveying that to a Bouster to get those bills across. When it comes to golf, we haven't really had to talk to too many. I was worried with the last one, last week's news article. That's bad press, and it's never a good thing to have out there. From the board standpoint, we didn't make a comment on our Facebook page on that or anything on our social media. And I would say I was very happy to see that the clubs kind of took the initiative on that. And there was a lot of clubs and other members just posting the guidelines, that NZDG, again, always stands by the disc golf code, so that's our main focal point, and that just stems into a lot of other conversations on what are required, what's the board required to do to encourage clubs to have signage and those things, but I don't really want to go down that track tonight. But having the ability to talk to those outlets if need be, media or otherwise. We had another. Well, I won't go into that one either. Never mind.
Okay, Paul, anything for yourself? Anything?
No, I'm done with my questions.
Lovely stuff. Excellent. Alan, can you stick around for the panel?
Yeah, I'll give you a few more minutes.
Yep. Okay. All right. So we'll bring everybody else back in now. One moment while I just set up these screens. Maybe if we go like this and put me and Paul down there. Lovely stuff. Okay. First up, to all the candidates, thank you so much for joining us today and for taking time out of your evening. It's been best part of an hour and a half now, so very, very happy that you could join us, and hopefully it's not been too tough and you've enjoyed it, and hopefully the everybody watching has found it valuable as well. We've got some questions for you as a group. So the first one is that 70% of disc golf in New Zealand is played in the South Island. We touched on this with Chris Dixon. The South Island has less than a quarter of the population. In per capita terms, it's 8 times as many players play in the South as play in the North, and the gap appears to be widening. What do you think can be done to encourage the growth of the game within the North Island and to close that gap? Oh, seem to have lost Alan. Does someone want to kick us off?
Alan!
He's supposed to be the chairman. He's supposed to lead us into this.
Oh.
And he's the only one from North Island, isn't he?
We have Alan back. One moment. He's just running back now.
Well, I'll jump in while we're waiting. I mean, can we find, who are our players? Who are our players that live in Hamilton, who live in Taupo, who live in, Whakatane, Gisborne, wherever they are? We do, there are players out there. They're not just based in Auckland and Wellington, right, and Hamilton. And let's encourage everyone to go and move to a different part of the country anyway, get a new job and shift our work.
I had an impression that the sport is growing up.
I mean, if you're looking for...
No, just saying, because I went to Middle Earth and I heard
from
that it's hypothesized before, and then now Taupo was sold out real quick as well, so I feel like it's growing there as well. So
yeah, Alan,
being the only person from the North Island at the moment on the panel here, I would echo what Leanna just said in the sense that we're seeing tournaments sell out just as fast, or not as fast, but faster than numbers we've not had before in the last few years in Rotorua, Taupo, Taranui, Brook Park even. I mean, Brook Park it's probably one of the better courses in the country, only had 28 people. So we do have some spots that don't get as much play. But I think personally that's because you guys have a course in town at almost every large city down there. And that's something that we don't have. We have more rural parks and whatnot. And speaking to what you said earlier, people in town, do get influenced by having golf available to them. So if you have to drive a half an hour, and it's not 10-minute walk or something like that, it's gonna change your ability to get to the course.
Yep.
I was going to say it would be quite interesting to see the statistics of how many courses do we have in the South Island per the statistics. Add that to the mix of those statistics. If it's 8-1, players wise, but what's the sort of look course wise?
Course wise, it's 4-1. Because half of the courses.
But you can understand how there's no chance for the 1.3 million players per people in Auckland that we can build a course on per every 100,000. Whereas here in Queenstown and Wanaka, we're very fortunate to have 2 courses, and we don't have that massive amount of people here.
Well, is it?
Our courses up here are filling up too.
Yeah. Yes, I'm well aware of that. Yeah. I think if anyone wants to ask me for my ideas, maybe that's for after the elections. This show's not about me.
So we've got another question that's for the group. Now, this question is about drugs in sport. Now, most national sports organisations in New Zealand belong to Drug-Free Sport New Zealand, which is the national anti-doping agency. Disc golf isn't a member of it, or at least NZDG isn't. Do you think that it's a good time for NZDG to join Drug-Free Sports New Zealand?
I don't see a reason not to. I mean, the NZDG still adheres to the to the PDGA's recommendation of no drugs and alcohol, and even up to the point of no smoking. We follow all those guidelines as much as possible. And if there's an organization that we can join in there, it would fit within our current guidelines.
Chris,
I'd like to touch on that as well. There's definitely a way forward to do that as well. And I'd like to commend Chris Smith, the tournament director for Timaru. He's also made it public that his tournament the whole time is going to be smoke free. There's just been a lot of discussion. Oh, can we smoke during the tournament and stuff? At the moment, it is up to the tournament directors, and I like to see that moving forward to be smoke free. The whole country is moving towards that, and we'll see how that sort of turns out in the future.
Excellent. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think at the level, I don't know exactly what the implications of joining that sports drug-free association is, but I do like the idea of sports people looking after themselves and being encouraged to do that, and at the same time play within the PDGA, as you said, Alan. There's guidelines there, and I think that as players we need to respect those. Whether we need to be a member at this stage, I'm not entirely certain. I'd probably need to read a whole load of material there, but I do like the idea of sports people taking responsibility for their own well-being and their own and playing within the rules of the PDGA, which is what we're affiliated to.
Excellent. Paul, any questions from yourself?
Yes, I've got a general question for everybody, and it's almost a housekeeping question, but I may have missed something, but I couldn't find the candidates' conflict of interest declarations. So my question is just to go around the table and to tell voting members what you guys put in your conflict of interest declarations.
Well, I can start. I have no conflict of interest on any of the questions asked.
Cool.
So for me and Lena, I'll just speak both of us, we don't have any conflict of interest apart from we are being sponsored by Team Innova New Zealand and Small Pond Disc Sport.
Yeah. Alan?
And I have no conflict of interest.
Cool.
Yeah, I have no conflict of interest. not
Cool.
sponsored.
Easily
Yeah,
done. That was just because I couldn't find the information. We asked
They're there somewhere.
We asked Chris.
yeah, they're on the
Dixon
website.
the question. Okay, cool. I don't have any more questions for the panel, Matt.
Lovely stuff. Okay. Look, I'd like to then wrap up by saying, look, thanks so much to all of our panel members for joining us. If there's anything else you'd like to add for any of the viewers, then now's a good time. Alan?
Well, I just want to say this, echo that. Thanks, Leanna. Thanks, Roberts. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris Davies, who isn't here tonight. Thanks, Chris Dixon. Man, we got a lot of Chris's. Thanks, Dixon, who isn't here tonight as well. For putting their hands up. Again, this is a volunteer position. All of us running unopposed does say something to the people that are to what's out there. So, we're here trying to support you guys as well. And anything, like Leanna said, earlier, that we're doing is in our best heart and our best interest in trying to grow this game for ourselves, yourselves, and the community. So yeah, thank you for having us tonight, and much obliged.
All good. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I'm sure we'll speak to you individually again on the show if you'd like to come on and tell us how you're getting on and what ideas you've been able to push through and ways that you're going to help the growth of disc golf in New Zealand. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Well,
thank you very much. Thanks all. Bye.
Paul, my second to last thanks goes to yourself for joining me and for helping with all of your insightful questions and assistance that you've given me over the last week or so in preparing for this. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks very much, Matt, and I applaud what you're doing to bring greater communication and transparency in our sport. It's great.
No, that's what it's all about. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too.
My final thanks is to all of you for watching. It's been over an hour and a half of hearing my voice, which is probably now grating on many of you. But more importantly, we've heard from the candidates. And I think that's the whole point of today, was to give you a better understanding of where they're coming from, their ideas for the future, and to give you a little bit more confidence in the vote that you make this week. I'd encourage everybody to use your vote. If you did not get an email come through, then you should have done. Then you need to reach out to the current board, who will put you in contact with the person who to get in contact with, so that you do get your chance to vote. Please vote. The voting is open until Thursday next week. It closes at 7 p.m. I believe, and then the AGM itself kicks off at 7 p.m. on Friday. Again, there's a link if you're eligible. I think there's also on the website to come along to the AGM. Please do come along to the AGM, see what goes on, and see who gets elected in. And there'll also be an opportunity to vote at the AGM itself, although I would encourage you to vote beforehand. Feel free to re-watch the video, go through the candidates again. I'll post up in the description of this video the exact timings for the individual candidates, so that you can skip to the ones that you want to see. Other than that, manifestos are up on the website, conflicts of interest are up on the website. Please vote, do your democratic thing, and I shall see you all next week. So have a great week, everybody. Take it easy.